Coming up on No Pulp, the SEC Big 12 Challenge in January. It was some fun basketball to watch, but one conference they dominated.
A little birdie told me that our guest on the juicer, Joe Puccio, is 0-4. Well, I'm going to make it 0-5, I promise you that.
How about some mid-majors? Who doesn't love a Cinderella story in March? We'll talk about a couple, well, who could do that? No Pulp. It's up next.
The Golden Spikes.
Sonny DeShero from Auburn.
The freshman never win. The freshman never win championships.
Jaron May, you are an absolute sweat.
Cleveland the catch. Good if it goes. He hit it.
Wow, he's getting serious.
Frankly, I'm pretty embarrassed.
Bang!
Welcome into the CitrusTV studios for another episode of No Pulp. That's Cameron Ezeir. I'm Nick Zelaya. Cam, we're like less than 48 hours now until February. And looking ahead to March Madness, I don't think there's 1, 4, 8, or 12 teams that easily could win March Madness this year.
Not at all. I mean, the rankings have been switched so much, and we'll talk about mid-majors later, but they've even littered themselves within the top 25. So confused how the top 10 has shapened out, and it'll be very, very concerning for those teams because I think upsets are going to come.
Well, some teams that will be making some noise in March, both from the SEC Conference and the Big 12, and those two went at it in the Big 12 SEC Challenge this past weekend. And it was interesting. The Big 12 won 7-3. I thought there'd be some more competition. The best SEC team was Alabama, the number 2 team in the nation, going against Oklahoma, who I know you have some words for.
Yeah.
They lost by 30, Cam. Oklahoma. Talk about the Sooners.
Awful. Got thumped. I don't even want to talk about the Sooners. I'll be honest with you. I want to talk about Alabama. Entered the weekend number 3 in scoring margin. You thought the Crimson Tide had a chance of jumping Purdue until they didn't and lost 93-69. Your eyes are not deceiving you. 4 straight road games winning by 10 or more. Their last road loss was to Gonzaga, where they dropped 90. Bama had won 9 straight, scoring 83 per game, and got absolutely demolished. This is a team that even on defense during that 9-game winning streak, 64 points per contest for the opposing team, but Oklahoma absolutely demolished them. It wasn't pretty at all. I want to give Iowa State their dues as well. Kansas finally got off the schneid a bit, beating Kentucky, because I think a lot of Kansas fans worried about the Jayhawks' hopes come March Madness because they'd fallen off a bit.
Well, it could have been the first 4-game losing streak in Bill Self's tenure with the Jayhawks, which, I mean, we have a good Kansas friend who is not too thrilled about the way Kansas has been playing. But, I mean, they were able to avoid the 4-game skid, beat Kentucky, who came in as the best offensive rebounding team in the country. It makes sense when you got big Oscar Tshiebwe down there. And you look at Kansas, it's like, whoa, we got KJ Adams at center. This is not going to be a matchup, but they were able to do their thing. Adams plays well. Kevin McCullough, he's been really stepping up lately, back-to-back games now with double-doubles. And Jalen Wilson, I mean, he just continues to be a bucket. 22 points now against this Kentucky team. A big win for Kansas to keep their name in national championship contention.
And I wanted to mention Iowa State for a second, taking on Missouri. And Missouri's Kobe Brown, who's been so good, 16 a game, and he's really propelled the Tigers into relevancy. And for Iowa State, for a team that's ranked top 15 in the nation, really disappointed to see them fall by 17. And they just haven't performed well on the road. And as a top 15 team, you have to play a lot better. They beat 2 top 7 teams at home. But if you can't play on the road, you know what they say, you can't play college basketball. And that's probably a fate that Iowa State will fall to later on in the season. A few other teams that can really play college basketball in the ACC, some of the best. Miami and Pittsburgh. Pitt ends on an 11-0 run to take down Miami 71-68. This says a lot about Pittsburgh. But what does it say about Miami falling?
You know, I'm not too worried about Miami, to be honest. This is a team I think that they have size, they have scoring, they have defense. They've had a couple close losses, and that's been it. They haven't been getting blown out. It's been close losses. They've been able to pull out some good victories. I mean, even talking about the Syracuse game just a couple weeks ago. It was a game where Miami did not play well, and they were still able to come out with a win. But I do want to mention this Pittsburgh team because I really like them.
You think they're legit?
They are fun to watch, and a lot of pressure coming in the season with Jeff Capel. I mean, 4 straight seasons with losing records. You come into this year, if you have another losing season, you're out, bud. I mean, you go 5 years with losing records, you're not going to last long. But I really like this team. Blake Hinson, averaging 16 points on the year, 6.5 rebounds. He has a great story. Transfer from Ole Miss, went to Iowa State, had a medical condition, didn't play for 2 full seasons, and now he's with Pittsburgh, leading this team. They're getting AP votes again, and I think this is a team that can be back in the top 25.
Where I struggle with Pittsburgh is when you look at ACC statistics, the one thing you don't see within the top 3 of any statistic you look at within the ACC, you don't see Pittsburgh. They don't really rank top 3 in any category within the ACC, and that concerns me. Yes, you have Federico, who's a great sophomore center. Nelly Cummings, more experience out of him. He was a Colgate transfer, 109 games under his belt. Greg Elliott, he's a great guard, 5 years at Marquette. Jamarius Burton, over 120 games already in his illustrious career. But I look at the ACC standings and I say, okay, I see Virginia, you see Clemson. How can Pitt propel themselves into a positive position? And when I look at Pitt, I don't think that the Panthers have enough. I think they have a lot of experience. I don't think they have enough to be the best of the best in the ACC.
They've already beaten UVA, which I think helps.
And North Carolina, but I just don't think that's enough. I think you have to beat Clemson. You have to beat UVA again. I just think they need more on their resume.
They'll have those chances. And also, real quick, I don't think UVA is the clear ACC winner.
Not at all.
I really like this NC State team. Terquavion Smith,
Clemson's
leading scorer in the
so much
ACC.
better.
I really like this NC State team. Let's go from the East Coast to the West Coast to the Pac-12. Nick Zelai's favorite conference in all sports.
Hey.
Let's talk some women's hoops now. Colorado beats UCLA 73-70 in a really exciting game. This conference has been lots of talent in it. Just one team under 500 right now in the Pac-12. What does this say about the conference? Do you think it's the best in women's college basketball?
I don't know if it's the best. It's definitely the deepest. There's 8 teams with 9 or more wins at homes and 3 or fewer losses. That tells me a lot about the Pac-12 just doing their job. And yes, you can mention the SEC. You can mention the Big Ten. They're very top-heavy. And when you look at the bottom of those conferences, it's a lot of teams that aren't that good. Now, I'm not shying your eye away from Arizona State and Cal and Oregon State. When you talk about Stanford, Utah, even UCLA and Arizona in the mix, Colorado up there as well. I think any team on any given day can win in Pac-12 women's basketball, and I'm really impressed to see how deep these teams are.
With me, it shocks me that UCLA is a top 10 team
100%.
still. 2-4 versus ranked opponents this year, and you look at a team like Colorado, who's now unranked after losing to USC on Sunday. They've got Quay Miller, who I think is one of the best bigs in the country. She had 18 and 12 against that UCLA team. Just 2 games so far in single digits for her. But in the end, when it comes to the Pac-12, it's Stanford's conference to lose, and it doesn't matter.
Doesn't mean it's not deep.
It doesn't matter how deep and how good this conference is. Stanford has to collapse.
So who has the deepest conference in all
I
women's
think it's
college
the Big
basketball?
Ten.
How is that possible?
I think it's
so top heavy, and the bottom echelon of that conference is seven teams have 9 or more losses. How can the Big Ten be the deepest conference when so many teams are in that lower echelon category?
I just think they have so much competition. I mean, the bottom of the Big Ten has to go against these top teams, and they have good records. It's not a complete drop-off after the 5th or the 6th team. I think this Big Ten conference is really strong. They've got 4 top 10 teams, which we'll talk about in a second. The Big Ten, to me, is the best conference in women's basketball.
Well, they have a lot of talent. I'll be honest with you. They have a lot of talent, including Ohio State. They got Indiana, and Indiana taking down Ohio State, the number 6 team in the country, 78-65. A lot of prowess on both those teams. What stood out?
Yeah, for me, it's Indiana. I think they're the best team in the conference, to be honest with you.
Over Ohio State?
Over Ohio State, especially this 3-game skid they're going through right now. Ohio State, and they've been struggling. I mean, losses to Iowa, who's got Caitlin Clark, I think, between Iowa and Indiana for me. Caitlin Clark averaging 27, 8, and 8. She's ridiculous, but for me, Indiana's really good. Ohio State's maybe a tie between Iowa, but for me, when you've won 8 straight like Indiana has and you're on a roll, you're beating teams by 15, 20 points, it's tough to say you're not the best team in the conference.
I'll make it quick. Don't count out the Buckeyes. They started the year 19-0. They've lost 3 straight, but 2 of those losses were against 2 top 10 teams in the country, and it was tight at halftime and going into the 4th quarter.
So maybe they aren't legit.
I think
maybe they can't beat these top teams.
Yeah, don't take Ohio State out of your March Madness picks.
Go Indiana. We'll take a quick break on No Pulp. When we come back, the juicer, Joe Puccio, looks to break that winless streak. He's 0-4, I think. Puccio, Buffalo Bills. We'll see afterwards.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. Big time.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it.
You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early. You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Come on, it's not that hard.
My big man fingers are having a problem with these little tiny buttons.
Whoa, watch it there. Your blood pressure's gonna go through the roof.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to learn how to get it down. Instead, it keeps going up.
High blood pressure can increase the risk for heart attack or stroke. Learn how to keep yours at a healthy range.
Ever hear a voice command? Just say text barbershop to 97779.
That's not what I said.
Just give me that. Now my blood pressure's up.
Welcome back into No Pulp. You missed the little stare down these two were just having for the entire commercial break. It's intense here. We've got Joe Puccio. Joe, thanks for joining us on the Juicer.
I'm happy to be here.
Very
Hopefully
happy.
I win today. It's been a long time.
It's not happening.
Well, we're here to talk some college hoops and teams that have maybe improved their stock a little bit, but maybe also dropped off a little bit. With March Madness just around the corner, I mean, I think it's like a month and a half until Selection Sunday, which
Can't wait.
It's crazy. So let's get started with one team. Let's talk some teams now that have improved their stocks. First on the men's side, Cam, I want to start with you. Who's one team that you think throughout the month of January has improved their tournament stock leading up to March?
It has to be Virginia. Lost the first game of the year to Pittsburgh, and that was a close one. Only lost by 3 to Pittsburgh, like I mentioned. Then they won an ACC season record 7 straight games. That includes a game against Syracuse today. So they just keep continuing this on-par stride, holding opponents to 62 points per game. Also leading the league in three-point percentage. It's a team that's doing it in every facet of the game. They beat North Carolina, beat Virginia Tech. They beat Syracuse twice. Now, they did lose 3 games toward the end of December and that one game to Pittsburgh, but 2 were to ranked teams. I love Tony Bennett's crew.
Yeah, it's a good answer.
It's a great answer.
Tony Bennett in the NCAA tournament, they just go together so well, so there's no real need to boost up the resume.
Right, just give me the W.
One team that needs to boost its resume and has done so in January, Kansas State. 5-2 in the month of January with wins against Texas and Baylor on the road. And that's not even including the back-to-back wins over Kansas, mind you, and Texas Tech. Kansas State has another crack at Kansas coming up this week. But just looking back at January, Kansas State has a total of 3 losses, 2 of them in Quad 1, just 1 in Quad 2. So Kansas State has bolstered itself up to about a 4 seed right now in bracketology. Kansas State in that Big 12, that's a conference that could go any way. So Kansas State could now be one of the best teams in one of the best conferences in college basketball. You're looking at a pretty good seed in March.
7-1, 5-2 in January.
3 total losses on the season now. You got to win when the calendar flips.
Joe, you get the first point here. I think Jerome Tang is up for Coach of the Year. He's really turned around this Wildcats program. Joe, I want to start with you on this one. We're going to go to the women's side. Same type of thing. Who on the women's side has improved their stock in the month of January?
Yeah, a team that's only had 1 loss in the month of January. That is Maryland. The Big Ten is a conference that none of you guys said is good in women's basketball, but with Ohio State and Indiana, those are teams that Maryland has faced this season. Indiana, they beat the Hoosiers. So Maryland is just one of those teams that you look at in the month of January as one of the best teams in college basketball. An 8-point win over number 13 Michigan. Maryland's jumped up 8 spots in the poll. the Terrapins could be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. You have to win when it's important, especially conference games, the Big Ten in the month of January. So Maryland's a battle-tested team in one of the best conferences. Look at Maryland. I mean, they got a good men's lacrosse team. They fielded a football team, and that's pretty much it. Now women's basketball is joining that team.
So we're talking about other sports. I'm going to go North Carolina, a team that's really good at other sports. Between December 20th and January 5th, they were 0-4. When I think of the definition of boosted, it's changing around their stride. The Jumpman Invitational against Michigan, Nick, you'll like this, back on December 20th, that was a jump down. Then they upset number 4 Notre Dame. They beat number 11 NC State. They handed number 13 Duke its first loss in ACC play. Deja Kelly, Kennedy Todd Williams, top 10 in the ACC in scoring, and a team that's won 7 straight games. North Carolina, give it to me. The Tar Heels, 7 straight wins. They look really good.
Cam, it's unfortunate that North Carolina couldn't win in the first 5 days of January. I would have liked that if they got a win to get you a point. So I'll have to go with Joe here. I really like Diamond Miller, Maryland. She has continued to improve each year. Cam, we're going to go back. We're going to go back to these aren't the refs and Lakers Celtics. Cam, back to you. Now we're talking about teams that have maybe fallen off a bit throughout the month of January. Going back to the men's side now, give me a team that might be struggling when March comes around.
What's a shock is you might call me crazy for saying the Duke Blue Devils, but it's a team that started 12-3 in November and December, and you thought they'd run through the ACC with all the talent. They bring Jeremy Roach back, they bring in Kyle Filipowski, they have Dariq Whitehead, and you're thinking, okay, Duke is its normal Duke self. 2-3 away from home in the month of January. You allow 45 in the first half against Virginia Tech. 44 in the first half against NC State, 42 in the second half against Clemson, and bottom 4 in the ACC in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. Duke just hasn't looked great. You'd think they'd be the upper echelon of the ACC, and they just haven't.
I don't know why a team that went above 500 in the month of January has ruined its NCAA
because Duke is. You'd think Duke would be at the top of the ACC, and they've done anything but that. They're just sitting middle of the pack.
Let me tell you, a team that was at the top of its conference and now is in the middle of the pack, the literal pack, the UConn Huskies. Go to CitrusTV's social media, all right? These two talk for 2 minutes and 20 seconds about how bad the UConn Huskies have been lately. 2-5 in the month of January. This team, just a month ago, received 20 votes to be the #1 team in the country. Now, UConn's all the way down to 23. Now, I love going on Citrus TV and telling you how bad the UConn Huskies are, but UConn went from a easy number one seed in bracketology. Now UConn's flirting with a 5 seed, and you know about those 5-12 matchups. It can go either way. So UConn in the Big East with teams like Marquette and Xavier really pulling up their weight. UConn's in for a really tough February, and March could be just a few games for the Huskies.
Yeah, we talked a bit about UConn, but I'm going to give you the point here.
There we go. Make it interesting.
As you mentioned, they started 12-3, and this is a program that has all the talent in the world, and they're really starting to fall off. UConn didn't have as many expectations as Duke did coming into the year. One last one here, and this one's worth double now, so Cam could possibly pull off the win, or Pooch win #1. Let's try to get it.
Look, I've been here before. I know how this goes.
And lost all of them.
Same thing, we're talking women's hoops now. A team that has lessened their stock in January. Who is it?
Yeah, you guys talked earlier about how the Pac-12 isn't necessarily the best conference. It's the deepest. And the reason for that is because teams like Oregon really fell short in the month of January. No ranked wins in the month. And you felt that the Ducks were one of those teams that, okay, you're going to finally turn the corner and be a team that maybe we talked about earlier in this block, boosting the tournament resume. But you lose 2 conference games to unranked opponents in Washington State and Oregon State. To go 4-4 in the month of January just brought the Ducks down from a team in the top 12 looking at a potential 3 seed in bracketology, now in potentially a 7-10 matchup where you can get bounced in the second round. So Oregon really needs to step it up in a Pac-12 that could go any direction. And for me, if you don't have a team that's the best, everyone's not good.
Joe, get a taste of your own medicine. Missouri, they've lost 6 straight games. Missouri. After starting the season 12-2, they started the season 6-0. All of a sudden, you're saying, okay, could they contend with South Carolina, Tennessee, Arkansas, LSU? Missouri. No, they haven't. Scored about 58 points once during this 6-game losing streak after scoring 6 6D or more points in the first 16. You're telling me a Missouri Tigers team that was on the up and up, the roller coaster of going way up to the top, and then all of a sudden you lose 6 straight, drop down below, and the SEC has been a spear in their heart. Give me Missouri, and will they win another game in January or even February?
Missouri is one of the most fraudulent teams in college basketball.
And it was proved in January.
And getting spanked by South Carolina. They didn't have any expectations coming into the month.
I have been a fan of this Oregon team. I really like the way the Pac-12 has been playing. But Cam, I have to give you the points, excuse me, here. 3-2, Cam. I'm sorry, Pooch. Missouri to end the month on a 6-game skid in an SEC that may not even be one of the best conferences out of the major ones.
What teams have gone 0-5? What teams have gone 0-5?
We'll be back on No Pulp. When we come back, we'll talk some mid-majors. Not Gonzaga, not St. Mary's, some other squads you need to look out for come March.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Here we go. We're going to go out there in the rain. You're going to get wet. All right, here we go. Okay, quick. Oh, yeah. Yes. So much fun. Mwah. We're getting so wet.
Back in our CitrusTV studios for No Pulp with Nick Zelaya, I'm Cameron Ezeir. Enough about these big-time teams. How about the ones that have surprised us mid-major madness, which I would argue is a little better than March Madness. In terms of the mid-majors,
I can't disagree with that.
Who's standing out, Nick?
For me, it's Loyola Marymount, the Lions. And I really want to talk about Mount St. Mary's, similar name there. You know my love for the Mountaineers. But we had to go with the Lions here, and a big reason why, their win over Gonzaga last week. I mean, they snapped a million different streaks for the Bulldogs in that win. They're 16-7. They still have a chance to play Gonzaga again. They have another opportunity against St. Mary's. They're looking to get their first March Madness bid since 1990. That year, they made it all the way to the Elite Eight. Lost to UNLV, who was dominant that year. But this is a team, hey, if they sneak into the tournament, they can get a couple wins.
A 76-game home streak for Gonzaga in the win column. LMU breaks that, but I'll one-up you. I'll do you one better. And I'll say a team in the Owls of Florida Atlantic that have won 19 straight games. They are in the AP polls, yes, in the top 25. And you might say, okay, what did Florida Atlantic do? Well, what they did is they brought in Dusty May, a Florida assistant coach, and then they beat the Gators for the first time since 2018. That was actually their first win over a Power 5 opponent. So May gets his revenge, a team that's 21-1, 19th in the country. They've won 19 straight games. I'll stress that back to you, and that's some mid-major madness.
It's hard to hate on 19 games in a row to win. I mean, that's so hard to do in college basketball. Give me Drake. And we're not talking about the rapper, of course. I mean, there's some controversy before the show. Let's talk about the rapper of the basketball team. Obviously, Drake. This is a team that has a whole lot of experience, and that's why I like them if they can get in the tournament, possibly win a couple games. 17-6. This team is full of veterans, seniors across the board. 4 of their 5 starters are seniors, including Tucker DeVree, who wasn't even playing in their last game against Belmont, who's one of the best teams in the Missouri Valley. They were still out there. They won by 15 points. DeVree, though, he's a bucket. And this team, I like them. They're in the Missouri Valley. Not much talk goes about the MVC, but this is a team that I think if the Bulldogs can sneak in, win their conference tournament, get into March Madness as a 10, 11, 12 seed, they could upset a 5 seed.
Give me the College of Charleston. They were just ranked 18th in the nation. And no, I'm not mistaking them with Chattanooga, who gets whooped by Alabama in the first week of the college football team. I'm talking about a College of Charleston team that just had their 19-game win streak snapped. So they fall out of the top 25, but it's a team that's averaging 13 losses per season over the last 3. They only have 2 losses. Variety on this team is huge. 5 players score in double figures, and Hofstra, the team that just beat them and bumped them out of the rankings, only one of 2 teams to shoot over 50% from the field in a single game. You're talking about a team that gets it done on defense, that gets it done on offense, and they're 21-2. That's nothing to bow down over.
We talk so much about the defenses, especially the top teams in the nation, how strong they are. A team like College of Charleston, they can score the ball like crazy. Really good offense. And in the tournament, if you have a good shooting night, anything can happen.
Mid-major madness, that's what this segment's called. March Madness is what we'll experience in March. And our plays of the week, as well as our game of the week, that's coming up soon. Got a lot to break down, including some highlight dunks. And we can't wait to bring it to you when we return on No Pulp.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
Wrapping up No Pulp here in the CitrusTV studios. Cam's over there. I'm right here. Nick, it's our best and favorite part of the show, top plays of the week. And I mean, let's get into mine right here. We'll have it right behind me so you can see this reaction. We go to Stanford. How about this? Harrison Ingram. They tell you to follow your shot. That's what Stanford did. A man cut to the basket and, oh my Lord, just throws it down. And the better part, Stanford won by 30 over Cal. How about that dunk? Cam, let me see yours.
Okay, Nick, this one has to be the play of the week. I like your dunk, but this one's better. The game everyone was watching, Purdue-Fort Wayne against Cleveland State, and Tay Williams, he stole the show. An absolute masterclass of a dunk. Not once, but a double clutch. That was nasty. Went up with it once, then went back down, then dunked it. That is easily my play of the week. And now we get into our favorite segment, our game of the week.
It's time for the No Pulp Game of the Week.
Our No Pulp Game of the Week, UConn, South Carolina women's hoops. Ooh, this is going to be a good one. A top 5 matchup. UConn, number 5. They host the Gamecocks, number 1 in the country.
Aaliyah, Boston and South Carolina, great team, scoring margin of 36 in an undefeated season. Give me the Gamecocks.
Give me UConn, a game that's been sold out since January 10th. I mean, people are getting their tickets for this one. It should be a fun one. And now we get into our final words. And mine, talk about the Blue Jays. They're migrating back north. The Creighton Blue Jays. This team went through their struggles. The Maui Invitational, that was probably the last time they looked as good as they were expecting. But now they've got experience. They look better. They've won 4 straight, including 2 ranked opponents. They're back to playing the way they were in November, and they started out as a top 10 team in the nation. Last year, they went 7-2 in February. Who's saying they can't do that again and make a run as the best team in the Big East?
The Purdue pitfall is coming. They beat Michigan by 5. They beat Michigan State by 1. They beat Maryland by just 3. You see where I'm going with this? Houston couldn't hold number 1. North Carolina couldn't hold number 1. The Purdue pitfall is coming. I'm telling you, at least 2 to 3 losses toward the end of the season.
I love some Baylor Shiremen. I know clearly you're not a big Zach Edey guy, but it's all right. Thanks so much for joining us on No Pulp. That's Cameron Ezeir. I'm Nick Zelaya. Make sure you tune into our webisode. Have a great night.